This is Bengals Central Podcast, keeping you up to date on all the Bengals news. Brought to you by ProFootballCentral.com. And now, here are your hosts, Sean O'Donnell and Chris Rowling.
Welcome to the Bengals Central Podcast, found exclusively on the Pro Football Central Radio Network and brought to you by Onnit.com, the company that delivers everything you need to thrive. I'm your host, Sean O'Donnell, and with me as always, my co-host, Chris Rowling. Chris, we've got some great Bengals-related topics to discuss today, but first, we have a very special shout-out to deliver.
That we do, Sean. We're very excited to announce that we have a brand new Bengals Central logo created by David Raposisio, creator of the Draw Play comic. His website is thedrawplay.com, and he can be found on Twitter at DrawPlayDave. Be sure to give him a follow and let us know what you think of our brand new logo, courtesy of David, by reaching out to us on Twitter at BengalsCentral. Today we'll talk some more Bengals OTA news briefly before getting into our exclusive interview with former Bengals tight end Reggie Kelly. With that being said, we'll talk more Bengals OTA news briefly before getting into our exclusive interview with former Bengals tight end Reggie Kelly. After that, we'll wrap things up with another edition of our Bengals Central mailbag. With that in mind, let's jump right into our first bit of OTA news out of Cincinnati. One of the biggest headlines after the newest week of practices has concerned second-year tight end Orson Charles. Thanks to the additions of Tyler Eifert and Jermaine Gresham still being around, Charles has actually seen some snaps at the fullback position, which tells me that the coaching staff wants him on the field because they believe he's talented and can contribute in the passing and blocking game. Sean, what are your thoughts on this development out of OTAs?
You know, this is something that I expected to happen and I was hoping would happen. I actually put an article out on Yahoo about a week or two ago about the possibility of Orson Charles moving to the fullback position because of his playing days at Georgia, where he performed as an H-back. And for those of you that aren't very familiar with an H-back, basically an H-back is a hybrid between a fullback and a tight end. An H-back will have responsibilities to block on the line. An H-back will also motion into the backfield to block specifically, from the fullback position. And an H-back will also, split out into the slot or split out wide like a tight end does. So it's basically a hybrid type player that moves all around the field. And the great thing about Orson Charles is that he's not the biggest guy on the field, but he's probably one of the best pound-for-pound blockers on this football team. And I really think it's a great idea, putting Orson Charles back there at fullback. If he can serve as a legitimate fullback on this football team throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, that could very well be a position in which they could cut down on personnel in order to make room for either depth or talent in other positions. As we know, Chris Presley, I think I just gave some Bengals fans some horrible nightmares right there for a second. Chris Presley is coming off of a season-ending injury from last season, and John Connor was kind of plugged in there as a Band-Aid and hasn't really been around with the team very long, could easily stay or go. He's not really an integral part of the offensive scheme at this point. So I love the thought of putting Orson Charles back there at the position. What's your take on this, Chris?
Well, with Charles, I think he's a massive pass catcher, which is why they drafted him in the first place, and he was in line for a lot of playing time this season if the team hadn't had Eifert fall in their laps. So for me, he's just another versatile weapon, especially in the red zone. If you can have three tight ends on the field, but one of them at the fullback position, potentially Giovanni Bernard in there as well, who's a versatile threat, it makes the jobs of the defense a lot harder. And it makes things that much more dynamic in this West Coast offense. And really, it's just another reason Andy Dalton doesn't have an excuse to have a down year in what is his third and most critical year, in my opinion. And Gresham's still around for a while, but this solves a lot of problems if Charles can perform well leading up to the season, because if they want to bring Gresham back, they have a place and a role for Charles if all three tight ends stick around for a while.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And the more the merrier, really, at the tight end position for Cincinnati, who is a team that really didn't have much of a playmaker at that position for such a long period of time. So it's great now that they have a plethora of talent at that position. It's a great change of pace for Cincinnati. And speaking of talent, the Bengals added some in the form of a linebacker over the offseason. And what kind of Bengals radio show would be right now if we didn't bring up James Harrison, obviously? Well, the news out of OTAs is Harrison has lined up at the middle linebacker position briefly and blitzed the A-gap during the Bengals OTA session on Monday. So this is a new role for Harrison, who is learning new terminology on a new defense with a new coordinator for the first time in his very long NFL career. He's now 35 years old. Chris, this being OTAs, but their experimentation with Harrison so early, are they maybe looking for more places to put him in this defense and utilize his strengths, or are they just kind of messing around with it, being that it's so early in the season? What's your take on how they're utilizing Harrison right now?
Well, this is defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer doing what he does best, which is getting the most out of his talent. Harrison, coming from Pittsburgh in a 3-4 defense, is pretty versatile and can play, multiple positions in a 4-3. And I think, you're looking at this being kind of a hint as to what we may see in the upcoming season. Even if Harrison doesn't line up as a middle linebacker, he can slide over to that slot and still pressure the A-gap and gaps around there. I think in passing situations, if they want to line him up as a middle linebacker and give someone like Ray Malaluga off the field who's not very good in pass coverage, it's just another schematic option given a situation. And, the pressure up the middle is the most rare pressure you'll find, and also the most devastating in terms of quarterbacks and how they have to react to it. And I think when you put James Harrison in the same gap or the gap next to a guy named Geno Atkins, it's going to cause a lot of problems. More than we could probably describe adequately. So, anytime you can create pressure up the middle, it's what Zimmer is going for, I think, with this move. What are your thoughts?
I like what you were saying kind of right there towards the end with putting James Harrison in the middle to disrupt an offensive line right on the heels of Geno Atkins. There's not, a double team, I think, when you're looking at a guard in the NFL, that could really adequately stop those two pass rushers on a consistent basis. That's an absolute nightmare. And that's one of those mismatches that Harrison will bring to the Bengals that will just, create nightmares for defensive coordinators on the week leading up to playing the Cincinnati Bengals. So I like the fact that they're moving Harrison around the field. Obviously, we can't read too much into it yet because, yes, it is just OTAs. They still are trying to get a grasp of what Harrison is capable of in this defense. Today, or was it yesterday, I believe, during OTAs, they had him lined up, back on the strong side again. So they're putting him here and there. I think his main position is going to be on the strong side. However, they'll move him around and see if they can potentially, find something in him that, in an area where he wasn't utilized before, and, they might find gold while they do that.
So let's move on to our last piece of OTA news here, actually switching gears to the offensive side of the ball, something we kind of touched on last week. Right tackle Andre Smith is still missing from OTAs, which is kind of disheartening because the coaching staff has now classified it as personal reasons, and he's actually missing money and workout bonuses. But it's also kind of having a positive effect on guys like rookie Tanner Hawkinson. Sean, can you provide a little insight into Smith's absence, what it means, and what it means for guys like Hawkinson?
Yeah, there's, as you said, there's positives and negatives to both take away from this. First, obviously, there's some concerns about Andre Smith missing this time. I think if we had a something that was concrete, a reason why he was missing this time, we would be able to reflect on this a little bit better. But the whole personal reasons excuse is kind of driving me up a wall right now, to tell you the truth, because I have absolutely no idea what it is. This could be related to his arrest on the gun charges at an airport. It could be a conditioning issue, because it was reported over the off season that he had regained a little bit of weight. It could be that he, some kind of injury flared up again, like that foot injury that was nagging. It could be any of these things that have tormented Andre Smith since he's come into the league. So that is a little concerning when you think about it that way. Hopefully it's no big deal. Andre Smith will come back and get plugged right back into that right tackle position like nothing ever happened, which is obviously what we're all hoping for. But until we get any kind of a word otherwise, you almost have to expect the worst with this guy. And the bright side, though, the silver lining, as there is in just about everything, is, it's really helping out guys like Tanner Hawkinson get some more reps. Now, it's not just the absence of Andre Smith, but Andrew Whitworth is still recovering from off-season surgery as well to clean up some damage from a previous injury. In fact, a good portion of the offensive line is sitting out right now, and which is great, because it's really allowing for guys like Tanner Hawkinson, for guys like Trevor Robinson, and who else is in there right now? I believe Clint Bowling's still in there, Dennis Rowland. All these guys are really getting some extra snaps during OTAs, which is great, especially for the younger guys like Tanner Hawkinson, who's really coming in and trying to learn this offense, trying to learn the scheme of the offensive line. Getting snaps with the first team is only going to enhance his progress and hopefully get him to a point where he can become a contributor that much faster on the NFL level. So when you're looking at these absences from the offensive linemen who are starters on the Cincinnati Bengals, the silver lining is that the young guys are getting a lot of playing time. They're able to learn more quickly and hopefully get up to speed much faster. Chris, what's your take on the situation?
Well, for me, it's like I said on Bleacher Report earlier this week, Tanner Hawkinson's stock is actually on the rise because, he's shown versatility. He's actually playing both tackle positions. He's alternating. And this isn't a guy that necessarily was a lock for the roster, but the more first team repetitions he gets, that he gets, the more he can improve and further his development, like you said. And you have to remember he's doing this against one of the best defensive lines in all football. So this isn't that big of a deal. Andre Smith and Whitworth's absence really isn't that big of a deal for guys like Anthony Collins, because we know what we have in them. Collins is one of the best backup tackles in the NFL, in my opinion. But it's really giving Hawkinson important reps that could allow him to sneak on the roster in a versatile backup role like Collins does.
Absolutely. And, obviously the more reps for a guy like Tanner Hawkinson, who wasn't, exactly an early round selection, the better. It just gives the guy more of a chance to prove himself quicker and hopefully gain a roster spot and be that versatile guy, as you were saying. So now just let's go ahead and jump right into the next segment of this episode of Bengal Central, and I'd like to say that it was my pleasure earlier this week. I had the chance to sit down and talk with former Bengals tight end Reggie Kelly. We talked about two of the most important things on earth: good food and Bengals football. I mean, really, what more do you need? So let's go ahead and run that spot now and take a listen to what Reggie had to say. We are pleased to announce that joining us right now on Bengal Central is former Cincinnati Bengals tight end Reggie Kelly. Reggie, thanks so much for joining us today.
Sean, the pleasure is all mine. I appreciate you having me on. Can't wait to talk some really good Bengals football, food, the whole nine. Football plus food equals a whole lot of fun.
You got that right. I couldn't have said that any better. It seems that you've kept yourself rather busy since your departure from the NFL in 2011. your company, Kyvan Soul Food, it's really taken off. Tell us first of all, how did the name of your company come about? I'm kind of curious into that.
Well, Kyvan is spelled Kyvan, and basically it's just the combinations of my kids' names. My daughter, her name is Kyla. My son's name is Kaven. We combined the two to come up with Kyvan. So wanted to somewhat leave a legacy behind for my kids so that when they get older, they have an easy job where they can step into if they would like to. If not, then my wife and I will keep running the company. But this is a great venture that we decided to partake in, and we've had a smooth transition from the game of football into the food industry.
That's great. That's great to hear, and great thinking on your part. I mean, having the company named after your kids, I'm sure that's a great feeling for you, and to leave a legacy for them to take over. That's fantastic. So tell me, for everyone who's not too familiar with Kyvan right now, what kind of foods and everything do you guys specialize in?
Well, it was our goal from the beginning to cater to your breakfast needs, your lunch, dinner, and also dessert needs. So we've come up with a lot of products that would do just that. Basically, we took our family recipes and came up with different salsas, different barbecue sauces, seasonings, apple butter, blackberry, honey, jambalaya sauce, and the list goes on and on. You guys can always check out my website at kyvan82.com for more detailed products. But this actual business, this venture, it wasn't intentional by the least, Sean. My wife and I, we really enjoy giving back to the community, especially kids. And so what we've done on a couple of occasions is we've thrown a football camp down in our hometown of Aberdeen, Mississippi. And football camp was designed to reward the kids who exemplified some type of academic excellence. So we gave them a free camp, with free gear. I invited NFL stars. My Bengal teammates like Brian Simmons came out to help me out. And afterwards, in true Southern tradition, my family cooked for all the volunteers and my teammates. They raved about how good the food was down south. And they said it's hard to get this type of flavor anywhere else. And a light bulb, came on in my head. The wheels started to churn. And we just started gathering all of our family secrets. We pitched the idea to retailers like Walmart, and the rest is history, Kyvan Soul Food Selections. And so, again, we're excited about this opportunity to really venture into the food industry. Obviously, it's very competitive, which I love because it kind of reminds me of football. I can put my helmet on, put my shoulder pads on, so to speak, and get back in between the trenches and compete.
Absolutely. And that's a great analogy. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of the mental toughness that you had to go through, playing the game of football has really helped you transition into a really competitive market that you're in right now, which I'm sure kind of gives you a little bit of an edge because I've heard great things, and obviously we'd love to see you go the distance and succeed here with Kyvan. And, one thing that I took notes to when you were just talking is that apparently, you've got a lot of family secret recipes and all that good stuff. And it sounds like it's been in your family for quite a long time. Now, is there like certain family members who kind of taught you how to cook and how to make certain dishes growing up? And did that kind of inspire you to go out on your own and kind of experiment with different flavors, and you kind of grew into cooking and got into the business kind of in that regard?
Well, I tell you this, Sean, my family name is on the line, so I have to make sure that I came with my A game. And so, I was definitely influenced by my grandmother. My dad and my moms could really cook really well. My big brother is an outstanding cook. But it goes a little bit further than that. My wife is an outstanding cook as well. That's the way that she got me, if you know what I mean. And so I combine not only my family's cooking, but also my wife's family cooking, which my wife she's my high school sweetheart. And so we're both from Mississippi. And so it was just a win-win situation. And our family is delighted that we can, share some of our family secrets, the stuff that I've been enjoying all my life. Now, it brings my family great joy to see now people all over the country and all over the world enjoying this same Southern tradition that we've been enjoying forever. And so I think it brings my family great excitement and great joy to see our dishes being enjoyed so much.
That's great, and it works for us too, because everything you're saying, all the ingredients you were listing before, it all sounds tremendous. And if we can't get to a Kelly family reunion, I guess we'll take the next best route here and look for your stuff in the supermarket, right?
Yeah, I guess that's the next best thing to do, man. And then you can always act like you're Kelly. You know what I mean? And really appreciate the goodness.
That sounds great, man. So where, just to let everyone know out there, where can everybody find your products right now?
Well, you guys can always, go to my website at kyvan82.com. That's KYVAN82.com. My products are also on Amazon as well. But we're also located throughout Kentucky in Walmarts, from Lexington to Louisville, to all over, the state of Kentucky. And again, you can always go to my website to see those particular locations. We're going to continue to expand this business, not only in the region, but also make it a national brand.
That's great. And I got to say that, people should definitely go over to your website at kyvan82.com, because I was there before the show, because I kind of wanted to check all this out for myself. Me being up in Pennsylvania, I was kind of unfamiliar with what you had going on. And I got to tell you, it's worth it alone to go to the website for the theme song. Just for the theme song, it's worth it alone. Obviously, check out the products there. But I like the theme song. I think it was catchy. If they had more stuff like that on the radio, I think I'd be more inclined to buy the products that I heard advertised. So that was good stuff.
Well, Sean, you know what? I'm gonna put you on the spot. Since you really like the theme song so well, I want to hear you give me your rendition of it. Go ahead and give me a little.
Oh man, I don't know if I can do that.
I'm putting you on the spot right now. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, man.
You got it. You heard it here.
That's right. Oh man, these guys are going to give me a lot of flack for this, but that's fun though, man. All right, so everybody, make sure kyvan82.com. Look for Reggie Kelly's stuff. It sounds great, and let's switch gears here, man, because this food talk is getting me too hungry right now. It's almost dinner time, and I need to get myself some grilling out there. So let's switch to football so I can take my mind off of food for a little bit, man. So I got a couple football questions to ask you, Reggie, and specifically Bengals questions. You spent a good deal of time with the team, and while you were with the Bengals, there were a couple traits that I always noticed about you, above all else. You were always a fantastic inline blocker, whether it was blocking for the run or protecting the pass. I mean, you were like another offensive lineman out there on the field, better than a lot of offensive linemen, I might add, in that regard. And then second, you always seemed to relish any leadership opportunity that was presented to you, especially with the younger tight ends. That being said, the Bengals drafted Tyler Eifert, tight end from Notre Dame, in the first round of the draft this year. And, he seems to be a great all-around player. But it seems as though he needs to develop his blocking a little bit. What kind of advice would you give him right now?
Well, I would give him the same advice that a veteran by the name of Terrence Mathis, a great Atlanta Falcon wide receiver, told me my first year in the NFL. He told me, Reggie, if you do the little things right, the big things will follow. Now, obviously, being a young guy, I didn't quite understand that because all I wanted to do was just jump on the football field and just dominate my opponent. But all he was telling me to do is if you take care of the small things, then those big things are going to automatically happen. Touchdowns, domination, longevity in the NFL, being a vital factor, being a man of integrity on and off the football field. And I took a few bumps before I finally got it. But when I got it, I saw how my game and also those around me, follow my leadership, how that continued to increase. And what I would tell this young man is simply this. When it comes down to blocking, you have to do those little things right. Take the right footwork, have the right leverage, have the right hand placement. If you do those simple things, then you're automatically going to dominate the guys that's are in front of you. It's not necessarily the strongest guy or the fastest guy that's going to win when you're blocking defensive ends or when you're blocking linebackers, but it's the guy with the best technique. Now, I'm sure he runs extraordinary routes, as I've seen. He has tremendous hands. Well, in order for him to catch the ball and be a vital pass-catching tight end, obviously he has to do those little things right as well. And the same thing he has to do when it comes down to blocking. And I know he can do that because he has a really good coach, and Jonathan Hayes, who was a specialist at blocking, especially for the Kansas City Chiefs and also the Pittsburgh Steelers. I relish the opportunity to come back to Cincinnati, to meet the young man, to also give him some pointers that's going to help him not just be, a third down catching tight end, but a guy that can be on the field, all 3 downs. And that's what we need. We need him to be a great complement for Jermaine Gresham, and also for Jermaine Gresham to complement him. Anytime you have 2 really good tight ends on the football field, man, that calls for a lot of headaches and defensive coordinators, going gray a lot earlier than they would want to in their hair. And man, I'm excited to see 2 really good tight ends for the Cincinnati Bengals, really picking this defense apart and really making some really great plays for years and years to come.
Absolutely, and that's absolute great advice right there. And speaking of that other tight end, Jermaine Gresham, you were able to work with him a little while. You guys kind of crossed paths on the Bengals. And, from when he came out as a rookie to what you've seen lately in Jermaine, what progress have you seen him make? And consequently, what else do you think he needs to work on to complement Tyler Eifert, as you were just speaking of?
Well, I think Jermaine has made tremendous progress as a leader. That's one of the things that you really want to instill in young guys when they first come in, because let's be honest, most guys, if you're drafted in the first round, you have some type of talent. I mean, the coaches and front office personnel are not going to draft a guy if they don't feel like that they're talented. So everybody in here has talent. The thing that I think that really separates the good players from the great players, or even the players who succeed on this level and the players who don't, is those players willing to be mentally strong and those players willing to lead. We need good leaders, and I was taught by guys like Jesse Tuggle and again Terrence Mathis and Sean Jefferson. They taught me that, hey, it's your job to lead a game of football better than you found it. And they taught me that. They instilled that in me, which meant I had to teach the next generation on how to play with integrity, on how to make the game of football even more exciting for our fans. And I think that that's something I want to see Jermaine continue to grow into that role of being a great leader. I mean, when he first came out of Oklahoma, people considered him just a receiving tight end. But I can tell you firsthand, this guy can block, and he's very, very strong, very, very athletic, and he's a guy that can do everything as we've seen these last 2 years of play. And I just want him to continue to grow into that leadership role, to continue to push the guys, whether if it's his quarterback, his offensive line, to push them to get nothing but the best out of them, so that when he do lead a game of football, he can look himself in the mirror and say, hey, I gave it my best shot. Let the chips fall where they may.
Absolutely. You're not going to find one person that's going to disagree with you on that. That's a great point right there. Let's go ahead and change the pace of the conversation, so to speak, to a change of pace running back. Now, when you were with the Bengals, you blocked, mainly, I guess, for downhill runners, between the tackle guys. And the Bengals have had that, recently in Ben Green Ellis. But now they bring in the shifty rookie runner, Giovanni Bernard, this year, a guy that kind of has the speed to get around to the edges. Now, as a tight end, is it more difficult to block for a quicker back like that?
No, it's not. It's not, to be honest with you. You really like those type of running backs because they can hit the hole really fast, which means you don't have to hold your block quite as long. I played for guys, like Jamal Anderson, that was pretty much in between the tackles, but I've also played and blocked for guys like Ward Dunn, very shifty, guys who like to play on the perimeter, guys who can stretch the field, whether it's going horizontally, east and west, north and south. Ward Dunn can do it all. But I've also played for guys like Corey Dillon and Rudy Johnson. Cedric Benson was a guy who can run in between the tackles or outside. He had that type of versatility. I think anytime you add a running back as Bernard who can hit the hole really fast and that can put a lot of pressure on the defense, you want those type of guys on your team. It makes your job a lot easier. And by the same token, it makes you want to block a lot harder for a guy like that because he's going to run hard and run really fast in between the tackles and outside to make you look good as a blocker. And normally whenever you have really great blocking, and then you have really great running, that in turn is going to open up the passing game for Dalton, which we well know he's an established quarterback and going to always connect with A.J. Green. And I would say this, one reason why I really enjoy blocking for guys like that is during the Christmas holiday season. They really know how to take care of their blockers by giving them some really good gifts during the Christmas season. So I always love guys like Ward Dunn who will really relish the opportunity of taking care of his blockers.
That's great, and that's great to hear that you guys all, take care of each other like that, And I'm sure the guys are pretty generous with their gifts after your pancake and a couple guys for them over the course of the season. Now, speaking of guys that you've seen across the line of scrimmage before, the Bengals signed former Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker James Harrison over the offseason. This is a guy obviously you were able to see across the line of scrimmage plenty of times, being that you played for divisional rivals. Now, what do you think that Harrison will bring this year to the Cincinnati Bengals?
P-A-I-N, pain, lots of it. He was a guy, I can tell you, he was a guy that was a guy that played the game of football and is still playing the game of football the way you want outside linebackers to play the game. Full of intensity, full of bite, and full of meanness. You want your backers to be mad, and you want them to play mad, and you want them to strike with some type of fierceness that it basically makes your opponent afraid, or it makes your opponent dread the opportunity or dread any situation of going up against them. And I think that was a great move. That was a great transaction for the Cincinnati Bengals to bring a guy like him on board, a guy that obviously knows the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. He can always give the Bengals some insight on how the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to run their offense, some of the plays that they may call here and there. That's just a part of the game. And so we're glad to have him on board. Obviously, his leadership is tremendous. He's been to the big dance. He's won a Super Bowl ring. He's played extremely well in the Super Bowl. That, in turn, can resonate with the younger guys that has been drafted, the younger guys who are thriving and hungry to also win a championship, and he can give them some type of advice and wisdom on how to go about doing it. It's a win-win situation bringing him on board. I think the Bengals did a tremendous thing by doing it. It's rare for the Cincinnati Bengals to get a Pittsburgh Steelers players, and it's even rare for us to get a player of that caliber. And I think we're tremendously fortunate to have him on board.
Great insight as always. Absolutely agree with you 100% on all those points, and Bengals fans everywhere sure do hope that he does bring the pain this year, as you stated. One thing that comes to mind while I'm talking with you here, is speaking of the play, all the different positions that you've been talking about, whether it's tight end, running back, quarterback, wide receiver, linebacker, you've always had you've always paid great attention to detail in all aspects of the game, and you've always flourished as a mentor to younger players. Now, obviously, you've got great things going with Kyvan, your company here, but have you ever given any thought into maybe returning to football, maybe as a coach one day?
Sean, that's a great question, man, because I've been asked that a lot from people all over. Even coaches have asked me that. I wouldn't oppose the idea of coaching. The only thing is that it would have to be the right situation, for me to uproot my family to a particular city. But I would love the opportunity to kind of give back to these young guys, to be some type of inspiration to them, to pick their brains, and then to also teach them the tricks of the trade that's going to help them excel and be tremendous athletes, whether if it's the high school level or college level or even on the NFL level. I believe I have a lot of insight that I can give these guys, and it would be my honor if that would happen. It's not something that I'm just out pushing to happen. It would have to be something, I guess you can say, that would just fall in my lap, where a team, maybe an owner or general manager would just call me and say, hey, we would like to, bring you on board to be a tight ends coach or whatever the case may be. But, that would be an opportunity that I talk to my wife about it, even talk to my kids about it, because I love to get their insight, my daughter's only 9 and my son is only 6, but I love to get their insight as well on, what my next move is going to be. And I generally listen to them as well, believe it or not. But I tell you, we'll see what the future holds. Sean, if you think I can do it, then maybe I should go about this process and tap into it. What you think?
Hey, man, I think you'd be fantastic, absolutely fantastic. It's, I'm sure all the Bengals fans are listening. They'll agree with me. We've watched you year after year with that team and how you really, coached up the younger players and, and all the advice that you were given. I mean, unfortunately, it was a tough year for you, obviously because of the injury. But in 2009, when Hard Knocks filmed the Bengals, a lot of that was really put on display during training camp when you were out there, coaching up the guys. Chase Kaufman was around back then and everything, and you guys were the guy that was just basically helping them all out. So I think you'd be a great fit in there, man, and I think any team would be lucky to have you.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. That sounds good. Well, maybe I need to tap into that, man, and see what the future holds. But as I stated, man, I think as players and especially leaders on a football team or just in general any line of business that you're in, especially at the NFL, it's important for the players to really take control of their team because it is our team. It's not necessarily the coach's team, but it's the players' team. We're the ones on the football field fighting together, bleeding together. We have to build camaraderie and chemistry, and to do that, sometimes you got to push guys a little bit harder. You have to poke them and prod, and sometimes they're not going to like it, but by the same token, they're going to always respect it because they know that you have their best interest in heart. And that's, I think that may be one of the reasons why guys will listen to me. Some guys won't, but I think that's the reason why most guys listen to me is because I do have their best interest at heart. I do want to see guys succeed. Even if it's guys coming to try to take my job, I'm still going to give them pointers to help them out because at the end of the day, I know it's not about me. It's about the good of the team. And if I can get that player to play at his maximum level, then that gives us a chance of winning. And that's always been my viewpoint and my mentality. And I'm hoping that I'm giving a little bit of that to the next generation so that they can carry the baton and do those same type of things.
Absolutely, that's tremendously insightful, and you obviously you're striking everyone here as the type of player and the type of just person, all around person that that any team would want to have on board, which is is absolutely terrific. And speaking of of being a part of a team, and to myself, to Bengals fans everywhere, you're always going to be a part of the Cincinnati Bengals. But now that you're retired. What do you miss most about being a part of the Bengals and being a part of that team that takes the field every Sunday?
Well, definitely not Monday mornings. I can tell you that, man. I tell you, man, Monday mornings were the toughest. Those are the toughest days for me, and I'm sure for every NFL player. It's hard to roll out of bed after playing a grueling game, especially playing guys like the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens that are so physical. So I won't miss that aspect of the game, but I definitely will miss the aspect of just the team camaraderie, just hanging out with the guys, joking around, and just spending time. Believe it or not, playing on the football field is fun and it's exciting. But if you ask any former NFL player, they'll tell you what they miss the most, and I can concur that I truly miss just hanging with the fellas every day. Just joking around, going out to eat. Our family getting together, kids playing together. I really miss those days. And because, whenever you finish playing, guys move here and there. They normally don't stay in the same city that they were playing in. You don't have that same type of contact day in and day out. Those relationships sometimes seem to die out, die off a little bit where you're not constantly talking to those same people, keeping those same relationships. But by the same token, you do really do build some strong relationship. I still talk with Coach Lewis. I still talk with Jonathan Hayes, my position coach, even Paul Alexander, the offensive line coach. And I still talk to some of my old teammates, as much as I can. But it's nothing like being in those guys' presence, really going to battle together. That's something I would always cherish. And I thank God that I had the opportunity to experience this great fraternity.
Wow, that's a great answer. Absolutely great answer. I'm truly happy that you were able to take the time out of your busy schedule to to join us on the show today, Reggie, and deliver just so much insightful information to us. We really do appreciate that, and I know everyone that's a Bengals fan out there that's listening to the show is appreciative as well. Go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you, and also where they can find information on your company on Kyvan Soul Food.
Well, it's your boy Reggie Kelly, number 82 on the field, hopefully. Number 1 in your hearts. You can always check me out on Twitter and also Facebook at Kyvan. Again, you guys can always check out my website at Kyvan82.com. I will always be a Bengal to the heart. Who Dey to the day I die. Much love to my Cincinnati family. Peace.
All right, so that was a great time talking with Reggie. I really hope that he gets the chance to join us on here again. I'm definitely glad things are going well for him now that his football career is over. And I must say that I really do think that he'd make a great football coach. I hope he has a chance one day to follow up on that. And we'll have to wait and see if he does end up pursuing that one. And on another note, I must say I am most certainly looking forward to getting my hands on some of those Kyvan sauces, because I've been looking at the website since the interview, and they look incredible. And I really wish I lived closer to one of those Kentucky Walmarts that carries this stuff, but I might have to resort to ordering it online. And one last thing before I turn it to you, Chris, and I just have to clear one thing up right away here. I'm not planning an appearance on American Idol or The Voice or any of those other kinds of shows. My singing is reserved for interviews only. So with that being said, Chris, dare I ask what you thought?
Well, first of all, that was a great interview. Reggie Kelly's one of those guys I remember watching as I was growing up, and so the fact that he's transitioning from my favorite thing in the world, football, to my second favorite thing in the world, food, is great news, because I can still support him. And you guys should all make sure you go out to your local grocery store and support his brand of products as well, because, like Sean said, from what I hear, they sound great. That being said, Sean, I got to say, you have a fabulous singing voice that may rival Justin Bieber's. What do you have to say to that?
Oh, wow. I mean, put me in the same sentence as the Biebs, as he is affectionately known. I must say that's quite the compliment. His career has taken off. However, I'd like to think I have a better fashion sense, or should I say more normal fashion sense. Did you see him at the Heat game the other night? It was ridiculous. I think he was wearing leather and lip gloss. Anyway, I'm sorry. It was just I didn't dress like that when I was 16 years old. Is that what kids do these days? Or I don't know. But yeah, Justin Bieber, this is me to you. How about a duet one day, buddy? Let's get it done. Chris, what do we have coming up next on the show, man?
Well, next we're going to roll into our Bengals Central mailbag for the second time, where fans have submitted questions via Twitter to @BengalsCentral. So, Sean, why don't you lead us off with the first question?
All right, sounds good. All right, so this first question here is coming in from Reds Bengals, and Reds Bengals is @Reds_Bengals 513. Sure sounds like a bit of a Cincinnati handle, if I may say so. And Reds Bengals asks, where do you see the percentage of touches between Giovanni Bernard and BenJarvus Green-Ellis this coming season? He wants to know if it's more like 60-40 for BenJarvus Green-Ellis. And to tell you the truth, it's a bit of a toss-up right now because it's so early. But I really do think that the percentage shifts in Giovanni Bernard's favor when we get closer to the season. I really do. The reason I say this is because of the type of really passing-oriented the NFL has become lately. Offenses these days, they want fast running backs that are versatile, can catch the ball out of the backfield, and especially on a team that runs a West Coast offense similar to what the Bengals currently run. and Giovanni Bernard finally gives them that threat to do so. Running back's a relatively simple position to transition to while you're coming out of college. And I say simple, and that really is in regards to certain other positions that are much more difficult, such as cornerback and so forth. But I believe that Giovanni Bernard can contribute early and often. And with his carries and with his touches as a receiver, I believe he'll end up having more touches than Benjarvis Green-Ellis does in this coming year. Benjarvis Green-Ellis will still be used for what he's best at, which is his short yardage carries. He'll probably get a lot of goal line carries still, but I do see the favoritism for Giovanni Bernard coming out of the backfield this year, especially since Green-Ellis had 278 carries, I believe, last year, which is by far the most of his career. And even though he's had a nice long off season, I think they can give his wheels a little bit of a rest. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I'm actually going to go a little bit in the opposite direction here. I think 60-40, maybe even something as extreme as 70-30 is probably correct. Marvin Lewis is notoriously conservative, and Jay Gruden can be at times, and I think they're going to try to protect their rookie, at least in the first half of the season, and try to keep him healthy so he's good to go for the second half, because that's the one thing we don't know. We know that he's adjusting fine and has the skill set, but we don't know how he's going to handle the NFL physically, whether he's going to be able to consistently take these hits. We do know that Green-Ellis can do that, and I think he's going to see a lot of short yardage situations. And they're also going to use him in longer yardage situations, not only for pass protection, but so that it doesn't, it's not so one-dimensional. So for me, I think we're looking at 60-40. That's probably right around where we'll be. Like you said, though, as the season gets closer, Bernard has more of a chance to actually pull that more in his favor as we see more of him. But I'd be willing to bet the coaching staff is going to want to protect him rather than abuse him and only have Green-Ellis down the stretch if we're looking at a playoff run here. That being said, we can move into our next question here, which is from Eric Stumbog. You can find him at Stumbog1975. He wants to know, are the Bengals going to do away with fullback and have Burkhead Charles split time there? We also have a very similar question from Justin Talby. You can find him at JTalby1. He wants to know if the Bengals are even going to keep a fullback on their roster. I'll start tackling this one here by saying we'll combine them, and we'll say I don't think the Bengals are going to keep a fullback on the roster. I think there's only so many roster spots, and there's so much young talent at the skill positions, and the fullback is a bit of a dying position. I think there's just not going to be a roster spot there for someone who's going to see such limited snaps in Jay Gruden's West Coast offense. I think Burkhead is your fullback the majority of the time. Charles is the guy that's there to give him a breather or if he's injured, and especially he's your guy in the red zone. Sean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I don't see a fullback as far as Chris Presley or John Connor on the roster after final cuts. I think that Orson Charles being used as an H-back and also, possibly Rex Burkhead being thrown in there, that's going to be the formula for the Bengals. They're trying to become more dynamic. And to tell you the truth, the talents of Chris Presley and John Connor, they're great blockers, but they don't really necessarily fit into the scheme of Jay Gruden's West Coast offense. They need guys that can kind of help Andy Dalton out and make plays back there rather than just being there specifically as a blocker. So I think the Bengals are going to transition away from the traditional fullback, and they're going to start to look for some more dynamic playmakers to step into that area, which, as you said, will allow for more room on in other areas of the roster, such as wide receiver, linebacker, cornerback, running back. I mean, there's a lot of areas that the Bengals have just a ton of talent. I mean, they're going to have to cut some great players this year regardless, but at least this will help keep some of that talent around when the final cuts are made. So next we have a question from Steve coming in. Steve is at CincyBoy1976 on Twitter. And Steve asks, who of the rookies, other than Tyler Eifert, and what about them has impressed you the most? And he adds a who day at the end. Who day, Steve? Chris, I know what your answer is going to be here. I do. And I'm not going to steal it. I'm not going to steal your answer. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna talk about somebody that we actually already talked about a little bit earlier today, and I'm gonna go with Tanner Hawkinson, just for the sole fact that I can't say I hated it, but I wasn't a big fan of the Tanner Hawkinson pick whatsoever while the draft was in progress. I was a huge fan of the Reed Fragel pick in round 7, but the Hawkinson pick, I didn't understand it. But now after this guy played all 5 positions in rookie minicamp, and now he's playing multiple positions during OTAs while the veterans are there. He's lining up with the first team every so often. I mean, this is a guy that is really progressing at a great pace right now. And I haven't heard any negative comments about him. I just hear versatile. I mean, that's the word that is describing this guy. And I think he's doing a phenomenal job right now. As Chris said, his stock is rising, and I believe our faith in him is rising as well. So, Tanner Hawkinson most definitely has my pick. Chris, what do you have to say about that?
For me, it's my guy, Kobe Hamilton. Rookie minicamp, we heard a lot of praise from the coaching staff about how good he looked, how Jay Gruden, he actually was bigger than Gruden thought he was, and all those sorts of things. But now we're hearing reports out of OTAs that continue those trends, which is a good sign, because you'd rather hear those things from OTAs when the rookie is practicing with the entire team than just from rookie minicamp. We're hearing stuff from Jeff Hobson at Bengals.com about how he's making catches in traffic, making the tough catches. He's beating people deep. He's doing all these things that within the confines of the offense the Bengals need across from A.J. Green. And it's not to say he's going to surpass Marvin Jones or Mohamed Sanu or even Andrew Hawkins, but it is going to allow him to pass guys like Dane Sonsenbacher and Ryan Whalen, because that speed was missing last year in the offense as Jones and Sanu dealt with injuries. So for me, the consistent praise from the coaching staff and the media alike about Hamilton's performance so far, it tells me he's a lock for the roster, and you're not going to find a much better value in the 6th round. He's a guy that could end up contributing from day one next year, which is scary. But it's the recent trend we've seen from Bengals drafts in terms of how well they've been picking their players. Next, we have a question from Court Street Grill. And I want to give a special shout-out to them because they're a local diner in the Ohio University area, which is where I live and graduated from. I promise you guys I'm going to get down there soon. You can find them at Ohio Juke Joint. And they want to know who will handle the bulk of punt return and kick return duties. They also want to know why Andrew Hawkins hasn't been on punt returns very much. And they also want to know if Giovanni Bernard has a history of returning kicks, whether it be punts or kickoffs. For me, Andrew Hawkins isn't on punt returns because he's not the best on the roster at punt returns. The best on the roster by a long shot in the punt return category is Adam Jones when he's healthy. Hawkins actually, I think, handles some kick return duties, and the team's infatuation with Brandon Tate puts him back there as well. I think if you want to know who handles the bulk, it's Adam Jones on punt returns, and really, I don't really know who's going to handle the bulk of kick returns, but I would have to guess it would be some combination of Hawkins and maybe Giovanni Bernard will be back there. Giovanni Bernard did return punts in college at North Carolina, and he was pretty effective. But that being said, I don't think they're going to put him back by himself on punt returns at the NFL level as they try to preserve him and his health as he figures to play a major role at the running back position. Sean, how do you feel about the punt and kick return talk here?
Yeah, Chris, my theory here really has to do with the very last thing that you said about preserving your players. And basically, the reason that I gather is why Andrew Hawkins really hasn't been fielding any kind of punt returns or anything is he's a smaller guy. He's also one of your most dynamic playmakers on offense, and your main slot receiver for the most part. And I think if you're still trying to get him involved in the offense, you have to kind of limit his touches elsewhere. He just due to his small frame, I really don't know what kind of pounding he'd be able to take if he's constantly getting head-on collisions while taking the ball out of the end zone on a kick return or back by himself without any blockers on a punt return. So I think that's a good reason why he's not back there. Yeah, Giovanni Bernard, great punt return history, actually, in North Carolina. You can actually find a highlight of a punt return that he had on YouTube in which he actually won the game on a punt return, which was very cool. But however, for the same reason as Andrew Hawkins, I don't see Giovanni Bernard handling any kind of those duties, at least this year, not while he's getting acclimated to the NFL. And who will be handling punt return, kick return duties? I agree with Chris. Adam Jones, I think, is the best case scenario as far as punt returns go. However, with his recent calf tweak, you kind of have to watch that because I'm sure everybody can remember the Seattle game back a couple of years ago where I think he returned the punt 63 yards or so and then pulled up with a hamstring injury at the end of it, missed some time afterwards. So that's really got to be kind of a cause for concern right now. As far as kick returns, I know Cedric Pearman can go back there and he can do it. Whether he makes the final roster or not, if he does, it will be specifically for special teams related duties. But I think we might see some new faces this year back at either of those positions, especially if Brandon Tate doesn't make the roster. So I think it might end up surprising everyone. So moving on to our next question here. This is from Brian Goodwin, and you can find him at BGGood63 on Twitter. And Brian asks, what are the odds we re-sign Thomas Howard? We all know Harrison won't play every game due to injury or suspension. Well, first off, I don't know about the fact that Harrison won't play every game, to tell you the truth. I mean, if he gets suspended, that wouldn't be great. He has been known for getting fined in the past and all that fun stuff. And, he's had injury problems. But one thing is that this year with Cincinnati, they don't have to rely on him as much as Pittsburgh has had to rely on James Harrison in the past. They're not going to have to use him in the many ways that Pittsburgh used him in run support, in coverage, as a blitzer. He's not going to have to be an every down player in Cincinnati. I think it keeps him fresh, and I think he could avoid the injury bug this year and play all 16 games. That being said, Thomas Howard now he plays on the other side of the field. He's a weak side linebacker, and Harrison's a strong side guy. So those two don't really mesh when you're comparing one with the other. And my actual chances of the Bengals re-signing Thomas Howard are about a 0.01%. I know that seems extremely, extremely low, and it is because I believe the only reason the Bengals would re-sign him is due to some kind of major crisis at the weak side position for the Cincinnati Bengals. Something that I don't even want to say on the show because it's so traumatic, like everybody gets injured or something like that. Because here's the deal. Vontae is perfect. He's there to stay at the position for the year. And if you really look at the Bengals roster right now, there is so much depth at will at the weak side linebacker position right now, with Emmanuel Lemur, with undrafted free agent Jason DeMonch, and with Sean Porter, who can play there as well, the fourth round draft pick from this this season or from this off season. So, you look at the depth there, and, Howard's probably not on the team right now because his injury is still not all the way healed. So I really give it a very, very slim to none chance that Howard is back as a Bengal. Chris, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I don't think Howard's coming back in any capacity. One, because the depth is there, like you said, guys like Lemur, Vincent Ray, Sean Porter, and, of course, Vontae's starter. And two, because we don't even know if he's healthy, recovered from that injury, and I think they would have at least given him a look if he is healthy, but that is pure speculation on my part. I think it's funny, actually, that Brian brought up the suspension thing with James Harrison, because that's always, with him, a very realistic possibility. And that's actually really interesting because, Sean, like you said, they don't have to rely on this guy. I mean, if he's suspended, the depth isn't very good at strong side linebacker, but you can slide Ray Malaluga over to strong side linebacker for a few games, put Burfitt in the middle, and let someone like Lemur take over at weak side. So they're not relying on Harrison, and I think there's a good chance he gets suspended. He's proven to not care in the past, and I think he even said he puts aside part of his contract each year for fines because he wants to hit the way he wants to hit. But we don't rely on this guy, so that's perfectly fine. That being said, like you said, Sean, it's not going to have an impact on whether Thomas Howard comes back. Next up, we actually have another question from Mr. Brian Goodwin here, and he wants to know if the Bengals are going to add a veteran safety, either Chris Crocker or Nate Clements, excuse me. I'm going to go with no, just like I'll go with no to Thomas Howard coming back. I think the Bengals are pretty content with the duo of Taylor Mays and Sean Williams back there, and I don't think Sean Williams is going to have any trouble beating out Taylor Mays unless Mays shows some amazing out-of-nowhere development here. I think they're going to go with Sean Williams because he's a guy they can protect, and if he struggles in pass coverage, they have a veteran that's kind of like Nate Clements at cornerback in Terrence Newman, who can slide over and maybe play some safety in passing situations. So I don't think there's a need for a veteran safety unless, some injuries happen. And if injuries do happen, guys like Crocker and Clements will probably be around. Sean, your thoughts on veteran safety talk?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say no as well. The Bengals seem content with what they have right now at the safety position. And one name that kind of keeps getting overlooked that I personally still like and am keeping track of is George Aloka. And he's out there. He's healthy again. And I've actually heard a couple of reports of him making a couple nice plays out there during OTAs so far. So he's just a guy to kind of keep in the back of your mind. But, between the development of Sean Williams, who I really think is going to be your starter day one, and, Taylor Mays, hopefully he can learn to keep his head up when he's tackling. And then you've got George Aloka back there. And, I think the Bengals are content with allowing those young guys to go after it. Just like they did last year, which I know didn't turn out to be the greatest thing, but as Chris said, you've got a guy like Terrence Newman who you can easily slide back into that safety position because of the return of guys at corner like Dre Kirkpatrick, Brandon Gee, and Sean Prater. A guy like Newman can kind of be expendable and can be moved into that safety position because of the depth that you have then at corner.
That will wrap up our Bengals Central mailbag segment, and we just want to send a very special thank you to those of you who did ask questions, and for those of you who didn't, or guys who just did that want to re-up, make sure you guys send us your questions via Twitter. Shoot them to our Twitter account, which is @BengalsCentral. Try to get those in by Tuesday afternoon, we'll say. So that's @BengalsCentral. And Sean, I'll hand things over to you for a little sponsor talk.
Yeah, everybody, remember to go ahead and check out our sponsor, Onnit.com. That's ONNIT.com. By going to the Bengals Central page on ProFootballCentral.com and clicking on the onit.com banner. That will award you 15% off your next purchase on their website. If you don't know what onit.com is, go and click on that banner and find out. So that being said, we would like to thank everyone for tuning in this week. A special thanks goes out once again to David Rappacicio for the new Bengals Central logo, and also to Reggie Kelly for a great interview. For Chris Rowling, I'm Sean O'Donnell. Hooday.
The following podcast is a part of the Pro Football Central Podcast Network. Check us out at ProFootballCentral.com.
Tonight is back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you at. In the jungle, Hooday, bringing it back to the jungle. Every game day, yeah, the jungle's back. Got the natty pack in the orange and black. We're stacked to the track, so I'm back behind long work, chugging down cases. And a can brewed in 88. Hooday, Super Bowl, spirit of the icky shuffle. Feel it rumble through the king of the jungle. Thunderous roar, hear us soar across the river to the Newport shore. The Fountain Square, the great American ballpark. Down at the banks above the riverfront graveyard. The Paul Brown Stadium, the night is awakened. And we're making a statement to the rest of the nation. Cincinnati's back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you